Everybody, welcome to another video, guys. In this video we're gonna try to build something with AWS, except I'm locked out of my own account, which is very annoying. So let me try to log in to this shit, but I'm locked out of my own account, so that's crazy. I'm trying to like get this shit to work, but it's not working for some reason. This is so annoying. Unverified. Bruh. So anyways, so today in this video I decided not to, like, instead of, because I can't log into this account, I'm gonna try to build this shit on Canva. Feel me? Alright, so let's get started. Actually no, not Canva, it's Draw. That's what it is. Alrighty, so let's get started. So Draw. So we're gonna do this in a different way today because it's always messy when we try to build it through the like ChatGPT. Build it through AWS. So we're gonna do it like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get some projects from the final one to the first one. It says agents project, so we'll go for fifth one. So let's get rid of that. So first of all we need an S3 bucket, so let's go ahead and name this S3. So we have S3 bucket, as you can see, and once we have the S3 bucket, what we're going to do is we're going to one second. So we're going to in fact have this S3 bucket feeding to another bucket. So let's say for example, one sec. So let's say for example, okay, so first of all let's say S3 bucket, and we have the CDN. So the CDN is the one which sends the data forward, so it uses a CDN, so it's connected to a CDN. So let's say I'll point it downwards, so it's connected to a CDN. So let's say CDN, and then CDN which has CDN itself does not control HTTPS, so I'm assuming we have what do you call that, we have an as a security group. So let's go ahead and make a security group in the middle, and let's say for example security group. So let's say for example right here, boom, let's say security group, inbound traffic only HTTPS. Same with outbound traffic as well, outbound traffic only HTTPS. And once we do that, we have the S3 bucket, of course. This is where it saves the actual data. So apart from that, we have the security group which checks for the traffic. And actually, you know what, I have another idea. So let's do this way, and let's do here, and we'll do that, we'll do this, boom. Okay, cool. So now we have a working prototype. So what we're going to do here is we have the content delivery network, right? So the content delivery network via HTTPS via ACM, so access control management. So let's say let's do ACM here, so via ACM. Cool. So we have the CDN as well. So once we have the CDN, we're going to have a custom Route 53 DNS for this. So let's go ahead and make one big box right here. We'll have a custom domain, for example, let's say custom custom. Am I typing inside this box, or am I tripping? Yeah, let's say custom domain. All right, so inside this custom domain, so this custom domain is going to be linked to, this custom domain is going to be linked to the, so this and the DNS system will all be linked to, so let me just drag this over here. This will be linked to, one second. Alright, so custom domain, and we have the DNS as well. So DNS is the one which controls the custom domain. So we'll have custom domain, and then that's going to be connected to the DNS system. Okay, so we have custom domain, and then we have the DNS system from here. DNS system. Okay, so we have the DNS system as well. So what we do next is we try to get this over here. Okay, so what we do next is we have the custom domain, we have the DNS system, we have the CDN to distribute the traffic, and we have the security group to control the HTTPS only traffic, and we can also give it ACM access control management. So apart from that, we have the custom domain DNS, and for this whole thing, right, for this whole orchestration to receive this data, we can have S3 CI/CD pipeline. So for that, we'll use an example here. We'll use GitHub Actions. So we have predefined rules, and that would get it to AWS. Let's say we don't need containers for this because it's simply S3. So we'll use I guess we use a lambda function, and then we'll have the final deploy code pipeline. So pretty much lambda function, we don't even need the lambda function. We can just directly link, literally directly link both of these together. And what the heck? Okay, fuck. Boom. Okay. So once we do that, we have the CI/CD part of it. So let's call it CI/CD. So that's the CI/CD part of it, and we'll drag that next to the code pipeline, and we'll drag this onto over here. Okay. Let me turn this canvas to dark mode. So this is a little too small for me to see, but yeah, let's make this a little bigger, and there we go. So we have GitHub Actions, right? We have GitHub Actions, and then you have a CI/CD pipeline which deploys through code pipeline, and it triggers through GitHub Actions, and then we have S3, it saves to S3, and then it sends to a security group, controls the traffic using that and access control management. You have CDN to distribute the network through the custom DNS system for accessing the DNS, right? Sorry, we'll actually place this. We'll place this further over here, because usually the domain is linked to the DNS system. So let's say DNS system, and it would send a response back to the client, which is over here, sorry, which is over here. Okay, so we have the client, and that guy's gonna get the custom domain, and the custom domain will be sent over using the DNS system. And yeah, this is basically the system right here. And yeah, so that's the first flow, right? And the second flow, right, it's going to be the secure VPC network from Network Lab. So we're gonna have to use we'll create like a EC2 instance for this. So let's create one big EC2 instance. It's an Elastic Cloud Compute. And one second. So let's do EC2 in the middle, and text is a little small, but that's fine. So cool. So EC2, and then we'll have another entity which pretty much has, so let's say for example this is the EC2, right? And let's say this is the EC2. So once we have the EC2, we have the VPCs and subnets, right? So VPC is within the EC2. So let's say right here, we have a VPC, and we have that, we have subnets within. Okay, so let's say for example you do that, and you put that here, you put this like that, put that here, you put the public and the private subnet. Okay, so let's say for example private, and you have the public subnet. So the public subnet, the private subnet is where you keep the private information, public is where you keep the private info. But the thing is, each of these actually need a NAT gateway. So this is not the best way to draw this, but let me make this even bigger. So within this we have, so private gateway, we have the subnet. So let's say we have a NAT gateway. So I actually have to draw this the other way around. So let's say for example public and private, as you can see. So now we have the private subnet. So the private subnet actually communicates with the public subnet through a thing called a NAT gateway. So the NAT gateway is what communicates with the private subnet to the public subnet. But then the public subnet has an internet gateway which it uses to access the public internet, right? So it goes through this layer. So I call it the public gateway, internet gateway. So it's just called IGW. So this is the one that accesses the external internet. So as in, this is where the client is over here. And let's say, for example, client. And yeah, so it goes through the private subnet to the NAT gateway from the public gateway towards the client. So the way we're going to do this is so all the private information is going to be on this. So let's say, for example, this is private DB once again. This is a public DB and other public related resources. All right, so we can SSH into this. So for that, we need to have a security group. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a security group as to what can be accessed. So within this, before that, we're going to have a security group. Okay, actually we'll put that here. We'll call this the security group. Okay, so we have the security group, and the security group is going to be the one that controls the inbound and outbound traffic from the client. Okay, what I mean by that is, for example, you see this client. This is the security group towards the security group, and then from the security group to the outside. So let's say, for example, I don't know why this shit is like so annoying, but basically you can control the inbound and the outbound traffic using this inbound, and this is the outbound. So inbound and outbound traffic, except you can give it for inbound, it's only SSH. That's what it says, SSH. And for outbound, it's also only SSH. Okay, that's what it's saying. So we can have route tables. So route tables are part of the actual thing, as in, let's say, for example, route tables are usually part of the firewall. So as in, there will be a route table in the middle, so it knows where to route to. So it's a security group plus route table, and VPC flow logs, network access control list. So we can have NACLs if you want. NACLs are part of security groups. Separate but related components here, right? Okay. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to try to like NACL can be understood as the firewall or protection for the subnet. Security group can be understood as a firewall to protect EC2 instances, right? For a subnet. Okay, so subnet level is basically where we have the NACL. So subnet level is basically, so let's say we have this layer, right? And then we have the NACL inside. Cool. So once we have the NACL inside, what we're going to do is we're going to have the route tables monitoring VPC flow logs. So VPC flow logs is basically the logs of what's happening inside this. So we have a VPC flow logs as well. And then we have CloudWatch. So CloudWatch will run over this whole thing. So as in, this whole thing will be under, not that, this whole thing will be under CloudWatch. So let's say CloudWatch, boom, you have that. So let's say, for example, so we have the client who makes the request, inbound and outbound traffic. So security group, route table. The public internet gateway is the one which accesses. So let's do a small little test here, right? Let's ask our friend GPT if this is correct. Let's do, is this correct? Copy this and let's paste that. Okay, so client is right, so it is correct. Sure. So this architecture is good. Okay, there we go. So the architecture seems to be fine. And so yeah, so like I said, initial is within the subnet level, right? So like VPC, so inside the VPC we have the subnets. So inside the within subnet level is when we have the NSELs inside. So that's what it's saying over here as well. NSEL stateless, exactly. The VPC has it, right? So the VPC is the one who has it. Keep in mind. So let's take a note of that. So let's do the NSEL is only within the VPC, while the security group applies for the EC2 instance, right? So see the security groups apply for the whole instance. See, apply security groups apply at EC2 level. Yes, exactly. So we have that confirmed, as you can see. Now let's go back. So for the next one, we have the third one, which is the containerized microservices on EC2 ECS Fargate. So that's the container service. So we have containerized Dockerized services. So that's microservices. So let's have one. Let's have a few. Like let's say cart. Let's say images. Let's say users. Okay, so we have multiple containers. Okay, so microservices, and then we have ECS Fargate. So ECS is basically that's the container service. Fargate is part of the service on Amazon for it. So it's a Fargate ECS. So once we have these containers, we're going to have a load balancer as well. So let's say you have a load balancer in front of it as well, ALB. And once we have this load balancer in front of it, we have so let's do 3 lines from this one and this one, and we also have this one to ALB, and through the ALB we have ECR, so application load balancer. So let's do, I think the ALB actually comes at this level, like somewhere here. ALB load balancer actually does come at, yeah, we'll do it at that level, and then we'll do ECS Fargate. So we'll do Fargate. So if the load is balanced out, then we'll put that into the container service, and then ECR, which is the registry. I think this is like a one-time thing. So let's do like CR. So once we have the ECR as well, 1 second. So we do ECR, and once we have ECR, let's do GitHub Actions. And yeah, we'll do this GitHub Actions for now, or code pipeline. So let's say code pipeline. So an alt. So we'll have an automated CI/CD pipeline from here. And finally, we have CloudWatch logs and alarms. So we're gonna add that for the whole entire infrastructure. Say CloudWatch logs plus alarms. Okay, we have the logs and the alarms. So let's see if this diagram makes sense. Say for example, does this diagram make sense? Is this arc good? Let's copy this. Let's paste this over here as well. Okay, I can't paste that. For containerized microservices on Fargate. Let's see. Okay. Right. ECR, okay. Let's go. Let's go, baby. Alright, as you can see, We got that right. So now let's move on to serverless real-time order system. Don't worry, I'll be dropping this on the chat. So let's say export. No, I'll just save this file. I'll just save that. Okay, so that's that, and we have the next one, which is the serverless real-time order system. So we need an API gateway first. We have API gateway. Sorry, that's way too big. We have the API gateway, and then we have Lambda functions. So it's a Lambda functions, and from there we have DynamoDB. So DynamoDB. So we had the request response from the client side. So it's a client. Let's make that a little big. And we have the client. We send the request. We get the response back. But apart from that, we send this. You just Control V, Control C this. Control V, Control C. Alright, so we have that. We also have, where is it? We do that. So this is DynamoDB, and then we have the streams, DynamoDB with the streams. DynamoDB with streams, and then we'll do once more, which is SNS. Let's do SNS for this, or SCS. Doesn't really matter. So we need a SQ as well via Lambda trigger. Yeah, so we'll have the DynamoDB. You know, we should have it like this, I believe. And then we have that. Then we'll do. What's up, man? Everything to the next level. Thank you. Thanks, man. Alright, so we gotta make sure we use this over here. Let me just put this over here, and then we'll use this one the other way. This is DynamoDB, and yeah, step functions optional. We don't really need this right now, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be associated with this. So the workflow is anyways going to execute in like step by step. So it's going to execute this first, and then it's going to save it to the DynamoDB. So that's the point of this. And yeah, so let's see if this is correct. So let's go ahead and grab a snapshot of this. Grab that. Is this, oh crap. Let's do, is this correct? So let's say, for example, for serverless real-time order tracker. Do you guys have any clarification? But does the client get real-time updates, right? Real-time updated client, good. But what do you do with the event stream, right? Stream events. Oh, right. So, okay. Right. So let me try to get this as a say over here. Cloud. Let's go ahead and say serverless real-time order tracker. Project. Fixed arc. Okay. So apart from that, we have the first one, which is the easiest, arguably. We have a front end and the back end deployed on S3 and CloudFront, and ALB on EC2 for the back end, and then S3 for the front end, and this is for CDN. So yeah, RTS public, right? So let's say, for example, I'm going to do React plus CDN. So we'll have that in a S3 bucket. So it's a S3 bucket. S3 bucket. Production project. Okay, so it's gonna be called, there we go. And we'll have this, which is part of this one. Cool. And outside of that scope, we need to copy this, paste that, put that here. Cool. So we can just do the CDN, the the CloudFront CDN. So CloudFront CDN, and yeah, so we'll be saving the data on. So it's a, actually no, I've gotten something wrong here. Okay. We have the S3 bucket, and then we also have this. So let's say, for example, this one. This is the CDN. So we have the CloudFront CDN as well. We have the backend, which has EC2. It's on EC2. So it's a EC2, and let's say backend, and then that's gonna be behind an ALB. So let's say, for example, see, have an ALB. Okay, so we have an ALB, and outside of that scope, we'll have. So outside of this scope, we'll also have one more, which is basically the RDS, so relational database. So we'll have the backend save in that. So we'll have, it should be actually after this point. So it's a saves to S3 bucket, and then the complex stuff it would save. It would have an ALB as well, application load balancer. So there would be a load balancer before this. ALB, and then we have this to the EC2. And from there we have RDS, which is a relational database. So it's a RDS. Okay. So the RDS, and then we're gonna have the relational database over here. So we have React, we have the S3 bucket, and then we have the CloudFront for content delivery. With the application load balancer, we have the EC2 instance. We have the relational database, which saves. And then we have VPC, so it's all part of one VPC. So we're gonna have a VPC. So we'll have one big VPC. Alright. So once we have this VPC, we're gonna have stuff inside it, right? So we're going to say private and public subnets. So again, we have the net and the internet gateway in between. So we'll put the RDS within the private subnet, because you know it's more complex data. So we'll do private, and we'll do public next to it. So we want to do public right here. Public. All right. So let's just let me just grab that here. Boom. And once we have that, and private, and once we have that like that, we can send that. So we have the VPC and the subnets inside. So now we have the RDS within. The RDS within this, and we can have the EC2. Okay, so we have so this whole thing is basically the EC2, right? Whole thing is the EC2. So make it a little bigger. So inside the backend we have the VPCs, and then inside the VPCs we have the internet gateway from the private to the public. So it's a net gateway. Okay, so that's a, we'll do I can't make it bigger, but net gateway for the private subnet to access the public, and then we'll use an internet gateway from here to access the outside. So let's say right here we use an internet gateway to access the public internet. Okay, so for this, instead of directly accessing it, so we have one more thing, which is when we are going to access this, we will have to use a security group in order to control the firewall. It's a virtual firewall basically. Security group. We increase the size of this. Boom. Okay, so now we can control the inbound and outbound traffic. So we can control that, and right here, as you can see, we can just add that over here. So we have now access and control over the public subnet, the private RDS within this. So within the VPC we can actually add the load balancer actually. So because we need to balance the load on within the VPC, right? Behind ALB, yeah, okay. And then we have the net gateway. We have the net gateway, we have the internet gateway within that, and we have the bastion. Bastion is like from the traffic that's coming to the thing, right? Bastion AWS. A special purpose server, also known as a jump box, that provides secure access to instances within a private subnet of a, right, so it's within a private subnet. Right, okay. Control entry point to access virtual machines or resources in public, right? So we'll have a bastion to access with bastion. I guess this is where it comes, because then it can also communicate with the, you know, with bastion. So that way you can communicate with the private subnet. And apart from that, we have the ASG, which is what I have not added that actually. So actually we don't need that thing right now. We can just do ASG, so auto scaling group. So number of instances, right? So we'll do min, and we'll do desired, and we'll do max instances. Okay, so that means minimum instances, desired instances, maximum number of instances. So once we have that auto scaling group, which controls the load depending on the kind of demand this is requiring, the EC2, we can then further move down to code pipeline and code build, which is what automates the whole procedure. So we can have a code pipeline. So let's say this whole box could be one big box, and we could have code pipeline and code pipeline and code deploy. Okay, so what we do here is basically we have a, let me show you guys. So this is the code pipeline and code deploy. So the code pipeline is the one that automates the like CI, continuous integration, and then CD is basically done with code deploy, right? So you can have a Jenkins code pipeline here. So that's a Jenkins to orchestrate. So that includes GitHub Actions. We have Docker, so it's a containers. We have Kubernetes pods, right? And we have what else? Kubernetes pods, and yeah, you can orchestrate the whole thing using Jenkins basically. So you can, let's say, one second. So you can orchestrate the whole thing using Jenkins, and you can use code deploy to deploy it. So let's say, for example, all right, so let's just grab this over here, boom, and that fits there. Cool. So from there we can automate that. So let's say production. So let's see if my friend GPT is gonna say something good for this. So let's say production grade 3 tier web app with auto scaling plus CI CD auto healing, no, auto scaling. And let's copy this diagram, which is this one, and let's give it to GPT and let's see what it says. Diagram is solid. Okay, so it says it's good. I'm very happy. Minor improvement suggested. Okay. Alright, I'm back, sorry. So yeah, you can just Excel draw this, and we have an exported outcome of this. You guys can take a look at this as well. I'll drop the link in the description. Basically this whole diagram is basically highlighting the first, the second, the third, right? The third, the fourth, and finally the fifth diagrams of this project that we were building, right? So it's kind of sketchy, but basically fifth, fourth, third, second, first. Okay. So yeah, this is the rough idea. Because I did it this way because it's less costly than having to build it directly on AWS. So yeah, and yeah, you get the point. So this is pretty much to validate if my diagram drawing skills are pretty good. I mean, architecture designing skills are pretty good. That's a fancy way of saying that. Yeah, that's pretty much okay. We can add like CloudWatch plus alerts. We can add CloudWatch and alerts over here. Makes it even better. So then you can monitor all the services within this. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll